All right. Hi there. My name is Catalina Combs. For our blind and low vision attendees, I am a Black woman with black hair with a blurred background. I'm wearing a black t-shirt and my pronouns are she and her. I am the marketing manager at IDA. And when I'm not doing that, I am a freelance film critic for Black Girl Nerds and other publications. So I am thrilled to be here and talking about Black Twitter, a people's history. So let's start with Prentice Penny. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Prentice Penny. I'm the director and executive producer of Black Twitter, People's History. I am wearing a blue sweater. I'm an African American man in his young 20s. Actually, not. I'm actually 50. I have a goatee and a necklace my wife got me.
Um, I can
Joey.
go. I'm Joie Jacoby. I'm the executive producer and showrunner of Black Twitter, People's History. I'm a Black woman. I am wearing a blue plaid blazer, and I have a ponytail.
My name is Jason Parham, and I'm a producer on Black Twitter at People's History, which is also inspired and based on an oral history I wrote for Wired in 2021, where I'm a senior writer. I have on a brown pinstripe shirt. I'm a young Black man in his late 30s, and I have on gold rim glasses, and I have a goatee.
Awesome.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. I missed out on the whole age thing. I'm my mid-30s, looking young. But yes, I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. I had the pleasure of watching not one, but a couple, 3 episodes of Black Twitter People's History, and I loved it. I want to get that initial reaction from you. I was bummed I didn't get to see it at South by Southwest. I heard it was an amazing moment and I just couldn't fit into my schedule, but I would love to hear how it went for you. Like, what was your experience at South by? And Prentice, if you want to jump in and answer first.
Great. I mean, it was our first time seeing it with an audience. We showed the first 2 there. So it was also interesting because the first episode I mean, they're all tonally, obviously, but the first episode is much more lighter and fair, obviously, than the second episode, which deals with more heavier themes like Trayvon and Ferguson and things like that. So it was nice to see how the audience will be watching them kind of at home, of seeing one taking you on one bit of a journey and then 2 kind of taking you into more adult themes. So it was nice to watch how that could play tonally.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was excited, 'cause as Prentice was saying, it was our first time actually seeing it with a large group of folks in a theater on a giant screen. And so I was really also worried if our sort of comedy notes were gonna hit, right? So right, but people were laughing, crying, gasping, and so I think I was really proud that it went off so well.
Yeah, I third all that they just said. That I thought what was so cool about being at South by was it's the place where Twitter launched. So to be in that space, that's like where technology and film and culture all sort of coalesce, it just felt like the perfect film festival for this project.
Absolutely. And I had that initial thought as well, which is why I was devastated I couldn't attend. But I'm so glad that you got such a positive reaction. And let's dive into this because I have so many thoughts and so many questions. We kind of talk about Black people making Twitter a news source. And I never thought about how influential it really was until I thought about my mom saying, turn on the news, turn on CNN. I'm like, nah, I get it from Twitter. It's cool. I'll I'll get the lowdown from my peeps on there. And I'm just wondering what kind of influence and Prentice this is for you. If you're hoping that are you hoping this documentary will have? Like, what are you hoping people get out of it?
I mean, I think there's a few things. I mean, I think there's one, which is just seeing all the dope stuff that we created and are responsible for that we just kind of take for granted now. It's just they just are part of our lexicon and in the world. But I think I have a different feeling about it than when I came on. I think in the beginning, 3 years ago, my feeling was just like loving Black Twitter and like seeing all of that. But I think watching it, Jason's talked about, he says this in the doc, like he wanted to document all the things that we had done because so many things are impermanent on the internet. And so to be making the doc and be watching, having Elon buy the platform as we're making it is the really prophetic vision that Jason had in terms of documenting it, right? And so now my feeling is that because my kids will never be on, my kids are 16 and 14, like they're TikTok kids. And so there are so many things that they didn't know when they saw it, right? And so now my feeling is responsibility, just because who knows if this platform will be around in 5, 10, 1 year, 15, 20 years, and it could all go away. You could turn it off. It could all be gone. So this idea, and especially now with America, our country, banning certain books and wanting to change the narratives of our history in this country, needing something to push back against that, not just today, like today would be very short-sighted, I think, for the next, 50, 100 years, who knows where this is all going, so to have something that like counters that narrative, I think is so much more important. So I just have a different feeling about it now than I felt when I first signed on in 2021.
Yeah. Joie or Jason, did you have different feelings like now that we're here than when you started?
I mean, yeah, I like just to the fact that things were changing so much in the moment, and to be making a documentary while history is being written, and it made everything that much more urgent. In the moment, we started to realize that too. I mean, we started filming in March and April of 2023, right as he bought it, and we were like, well, it allowed us to have the right questions of like, why now? Why? Because it can go away. So that was really clear. But now I just feel so proud to be able to have something that's permanent, that is here, that can always be that will stay no matter who becomes the owner, and as things continue to evolve.
I like that idea of permanence
Yeah.
because like that is such a powerful word, especially when it comes to just Black culture and things that we find, and then another group kind of takes it on, and then we're like, forget it, I don't want it anymore.
There was so much genius that was created on the platform, right? And I remember when we were filming, I think it was you, Jason, when you were like, this needs to be in the Smithsonian, like this. How can we get these tweets of like Rihanna's?
I said, call up the Library of Congress. We got to put this in there.
It's on Hulu now, so.
No, that was sort of my initial fire for doing it. Other than that, nobody had sort of told this story before. I really wanted to give Black Twitter its flowers while it was still here. But a part of the struggle with that, which we were, kind of talking about, is like, how do you capture a thing that's constantly evolving, that's constantly moving, that's constantly shaping and reshaping itself? And so I think when we moved from print to film and TV, we were able to sort of texturally play with it in different ways, thematically play with it in different ways, and really get into some things that I wasn't able to in the oral history. It really was about giving us our place in history in the right way. And so in that sense, it's a love letter to, our people.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I was talking to a friend the other night about Twitter and how we both don't really use it anymore. And for me, it was just, people were being so mean, and I get like free speech and all that, but it was getting ridiculous. And I kind of sucked the joy out of it for me. And I'm wondering, do you think this docuseries will reinvigorate the folks that left, or, keep the ones that are still there?
I mean, I do want it to be nostalgic for folks. I think there are a lot of deep cuts in there that, we talk about, the initial sort of activation point, which was, your Black win. But we talk about, Twitter After Dark. We talked about Meet Me in Temecula. We talk about, Black Girl Magic, Oscar So White, sort of like really revolutionary hashtags that change sort of the makeup of the platform. But I think a lot of people will watch it and also realize, this is a good place that we can again start conversation. This is a space that still exists for us.
Mhm.
You know, the data shows that there has been an exodus of users since Elon Musk took over the platform. However, it's less so for Black users. Black folks are still on there, they're just not as active, right? And so to your point where it's like, you're not tweeting as much. I'm the same way. Like, I'm still on there. I've been on there since '09, but like, I'm not as active as I used to be, unless Drake and Kendrick are beefing, and then I have to like get some tweets off. Then it's okay.
You have to. That's yes, absolutely. And it is about, you know, telling a truth, like documenting a truth, protecting our truth, finding that community. And I think there was a mention of like processing the horrors of the world. And, you know, you posed this question a little bit in the series, but what do you think? And I think you mentioned it before, like, what do you think if Black Twitter never existed? Where would we be as a people today? And I'll start with you, Joey.
Thanks on that big one. I think I mean, like, there's just so many things there. When we were making the documentary, I remember there were so many times when we were like, whoa, like, imagine if there was Black Twitter during the civil rights movement. Like, imagine if there was Black Twitter during a different world. Like, all of these different moments in Black American history, how much more powerful perhaps we could have been, how much more reach we could have achieved. So I definitely have thought about it in the reverse about, you know, how it could have affected the past. But in thinking about without having that sort of platform, I mean, I think Black folks are always going to find each other. I feel like we always find community wherever we are. That's the thing that we really found. And, you know, when we were, you know, as we were making this was, you know, I think that's one of the theses that comes out of it is that from the, you know, as long as we've been here, we've had to find each other for survival, for culture, for community, for family, just for, you know, we had to. There have been, it doesn't matter what's been going on when they've tried to keep us apart, we've found each other. So I think that if there was no Twitter, we would still find each other, of course. I don't know what that would look like in a digital space necessarily. You know, I know, you know, you can definitely see this in other platforms. You see, I know TikTok knows I'm Black. Like, it found that out really quickly. I was like really trying to see naturally like what would come to me, and then it was like all this stuff like about how to keep your silk press for a little longer. I was like, oh dang, how do you know me? So somehow we find each other. We always do. I think we would have found each other without Twitter. I mean, Jason, what do you think? Like from the tech side of things?
No, totally. I mean, this was already happening pre-Twitter, right? So we had
Yeah.
platforms like Net Noir. We had platforms like Black Voices and Melanet in the sort of the late 90s and early aughts that were, you know, speaking to us and were a place for care and community. I think Twitter was really revolutionary in the sense that it came about at a certain time, you know, the Obama years, Black Lives Matter. There are certain moments, lightning rod moments that made Twitter really what it is and helped Black users on the platform really shape the sort of language and the culture of the place. So I think to Joey's point, we would still found each other. It may not have been on Twitter, but it would have been on MySpace. It would have been on Black Planet. It would have been somewhere, you know, post, you know, in the 2010s if Twitter had never come around for sure. We would have found each other for sure.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Prentice?
No, I think they said it best for sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned you know, Obama, my forever president, as I call him, really made himself relatable to, you know, different generations on social media. And then rewatching that footage of the Trump election for president, like literally gave me chills, like while watching. And I didn't know whether to cry, whether to be angry, whether to like just start a voting poll right now, because honestly, I'm so scared for, you know, the future of this world, the future of just our community as a whole. And now that we find ourselves in such a political, like high stress time, do you think Black Twitter will have that same fervor this election as it did previously? Jason, let's start.
Oh, sorry.
No, or you know what? Go for it.
No, go ahead, Jay.
That's a really good question. I just don't think Black Twitter is activated in the same way that it once was, but I don't know that it necessarily needs to be, right? Social media is at a very interesting turning point right now. I think it's trying to figure out what this next 10 years looks like. I think, you know, I joined in 2009. This was the height of the recession, the Obama years. I think people were really looking for a place to connect online, and that's part of what gave Twitter and Black Twitter specifically its magic in those early years. And then it's sort of the Black Lives Matter movement comes about and we galvanize and we start to use our platforms in more responsible ways. And then Trump comes and we try to push back. We don't necessarily get the response or sort of the election result we want. But I think in this next election, which hopefully isn't our last election, I think that, we're going to see the influence of Black Twitter elsewhere, right? You're going to see younger kids activated on TikTok. You're going to see people speaking out on Spill and Blue Sky. So I think the legacy of Black Twitter doesn't necessarily just sit within the platform anymore. It's permeated outside of that in so many different ways that we're going to see sort of its reach and how it's going to change what's going to happen coming in November.
Yeah, we talked about that in the doc too, right? That like the power is not the platform, right? Like the power is the people who make it, right? In terms of who make Black Twitter. So I agree with Jason. I think so many things, out of that have become the idea of mobilization for Black culture, Black community was obviously super it came a lot about through Black Twitter. And I think you're seeing a lot of those things already be active in the real world. And that's what I think I'm the most excited about is you obviously see, and we talk about this in the doc of seeing Black Twitter's influence on Instagram or TikTok but I think more importantly is you're seeing that out in the real world. Cause like my kids are 16 and 14. They're never going to be on Twitter. They're growing up as TikTok kids. Right. And so, but they just bring a Black Twitter energy into their regular life. Right. And so I think that's the ways that you're sort of, whether it exists on the platform, because again, he could turn it off whenever. We're always with Black culture has never been, I will say, controlled or dominated by who has the power and influence, because it's never really been us in terms of large institutions in this country. So we always find a way to circumvent it or go around it or, rise in spite of it right in front of us. So, yeah, I just think you're going to see it in a much different way. But I do think, as Jason was saying about nostalgia, what's interesting is having this come out during an election year, specifically in this window, especially right now with all his legal case stuff, is I've seen a lot of people sometimes in Black culture be like, Trump, Biden, same thing. And it's like, nope, not the same thing, not the same guy.
Not even a little bit.
But there's this sense of forgetting, right? Which the country certainly can forget a lot. But I feel like this is a good reminder to Black Twitter culture of what 2017, 2018, 2019 was really looking like. And so I was like, hey, let's be nostalgic about Temecula, but let's also be nostalgic about what the world was looking like. Because again, when you're away from it, that could be 6 years ago in your mind. You're like, oh, but it's like it can easily go back very easily. Yeah. They're trying to make it go back in a much more permanent, as Jason's saying, is a much more permanent way. So I also think that I hope people see it and take like, oh yeah, that was right. That was all the marches with the tiki torches and all that were real, and they were real things that happened. So yeah.
I hope it inspires people who watch to be active and to remember what's at stake and also the power that we have to affect what happens in terms of the election. But I do want to that Obama section, just with like just going back to that, whenever I watch that, I get so excited just from that energy and that feeling that I almost forgot, because of it was 2020, we're talking about 2012 there, and just that, and 2008 and how we all felt in this country, the optimism. That's something that I miss. And so for me, just as a viewer, when I watch it, it's just fun to remember.
Yeah. I mean, you all bring about some great points. One of the reasons I love this docuseries was the combination of positive and light and cheery and joy mixed with, the heavier things. But it was so well combined that it wasn't like a roller coaster. It was like remember this, but also remember this. And you're like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, what should I do now? What can I do moving forward? But also that was a good time.
Yeah, and I think I think to your point, right? That's the conversation and the feeling that Black culture and Black Twitter is always having in this country, right? Which is like you're dealing with something that's like super difficult, but you're also trying to find, like we talk about that like in the Karen section, you're dealing with things that are super difficult and problematic in all the ways, like, like the Central Park Birdwatch, like what she was doing is hearkening to the things of Emmett Till's of the world, right? Like that's a dark space for her to purely know what she's doing about, to purely know what she was doing and what she was actually trying to trigger. But then Black Twitter does what Black Twitter does and Black culture does, which is, okay, but we're gonna call that out, but we're also gonna deal with it in a way that has humor in this, to also call it out even in a much more succinct way. I think Wesley Lowery says this too in the doc, that we can often use humor as a way to like put a fine point on something. And I think that's the thing that Black culture is constantly doing in this country, because we've had to, right? We've seen some of, our ancestors have seen, some of the most horrific things and been through some of the most horrific things that any human being can go through. But then we're also going to find a way to infuse humor into it, just because that's the way you have to cope with those things. So I'm glad the doc made you feel all those things, because that's the same way that Black Twitter moves and Black culture has to move in this country too. So I'm glad that that feeling came through in the doc for you.
Yeah, in particular, I really appreciated the use of memes, like kind of to accentuate points being made. Like, whose idea was that?
This man,
Who are you pointing at?
director.
I don't know who people are pointing at.
Yes, our director. I've never seen B-roll or archival ever used in the way that Prentice did in this doc, and it's really innovative.
Absolutely, 1000% agree.
But I also think
to feel like, oh, sorry.
To that point where it's like so much of Black expression is wrapped up in the visual. It's sort of the gesture and the drama and the sort of the exaggeration, right? The sort of we exist in sort of this hyperbole. And I think GIFs and memes are so innate to how we communicate online. There was no way we do a documentary about Black Twitter and not in some way, weave that into our storytelling. And so a credit to Joie and to Prentice, who are like, we have to do this. And I think it's just, I've never seen it done like this in a documentary before. And it feels so specific and essential to how we think of Black Twitter.
Yeah, I think we try to figure out like, how does it, visually, how do you make this feel like Black Twitter, right? As opposed to watching the documentary kind of in an objective way. It's like Black Twitter is super subjective, right? In terms of how they feel about things. So it was like, I just didn't want it to feel like kind of like observational, where you're just kind of, I'm over here and you're over there. We wanted the viewer to feel participatory and all. And I think to Jason's point, I think that all helps nostalgia, right? It's like, oh, yeah. And so it's how we communicate specifically. So for us, it was like visually, how do you constantly make it feel like you're in the doc itself, you're in Black Twitter. How do you create that feeling? And that was one of the ways, along with the speed, along with moving, along with things coming in and out of frame and scrolling. And so that was just a lot of, again, in terms of just visually, how do we make this always feel super compelling and kind of interesting to watch, as well as obviously the information being there. But because you're taking it from a sort of a 2D space, even though it's a 3D space, even though film and TV is also a 2D space, but it's much more three-dimensional in a different way. So yeah.
And Prentice has like an encyclopedic knowledge of memes and GIFs that he wants to use. Literally, like, we'll be in the edit and he's like, no, I need that. That's not the right, that part. Like, that's not the right. And I said what I, like, he literally like, he'll be like, no, that's the wrong one. I did this other, like, he sends me the link and I'm like, oh, wow, this is a throwback. Like, and he's like, no, but then we need the GIF from the movie, like the sound, like, I'm still impressed, Prentice. I
have a lot of useless facts, Joey.
I also wanted to point out the music lyrics, or for each chapter or segment. Like, do you just have encyclopedic knowledge of music in your head as well, or was
that was a team effort? That was really everybody like throwing things in the hat. I mean, really, a lot of times it would be like they'd give me like three choices, and then it was like, ooh, that one feels like the right one. But no, that was definitely Joey and all the producers and the whole squad throwing out ideas. So no, that was the whole group.
And they're not all music lyrics. They're just sort of
Okay.
like things like Black Twitter isms.
Yeah, Blackisms.
Blackisms. If that's not a word, it should be.
It should be.
Absolutely. We've made it a word today.
Right here.
One of the things that really spoke to me was, you know, the moments where you gather around the table and you're talking over a meal or a drink. And I just have to ask, whose idea was it to have you guys eating chicken and waffles and biscuits and watermelon? Because I'm not mad at it, but I was like, oh, this is hashtag, you know, you're Black when. And who came up with that?
I think I said what the brunch food should be. I'll take the fall for that for sure. But I wasn't, you know, it's so funny. It's one of those things too where you're like, yeah, but we also eat chicken and waffles and like at our brunch, like and have mimosas and do all. So it was one of those. I wasn't thinking about the watermelon part. That I don't remember how the watermelon got in there, but the chicken and waffles was for sure a thing because that's what we do. But what's funny about the settings, what was interesting that I think that if you saw them the way we initially had them, it would not feel that way because initially we sort of did all the kickbacks in 3 different parts. So there was a part where it was like 3 people kind of sitting, having a cocktail. Then we did the big group stuff. And then we would shoot another segment with like another 2 people kind of hanging out post that. So the intention was never to really just always be at one group thing, but that's what always felt like the most fun was seeing everybody together. So that's just what made the cut. But if you were to see it the way we filmed it, it wouldn't just be like chicken and waffles. They were like, oh, here they're kind of like it's like the hangout before the eating, the hangout after the eating, where there's no food at all. So but because we just used in the edit, we just used the hangout part for that one. It looks like the whole thing was supposed to be there, but that
like it's like a wink and a nod, but it's also like
Exactly.
we do eat those things as well. It's both of them.
Exactly.
It's whatever.
And also like the idea too was that it's sort of like a live tweet up, you know, like those things, those moments that used to happen in early Twitter happening. We wanted to like sort of have that in make it a television version of that.
Yeah.
And to piggyback that, no, I was saying to piggyback that is like one of the things we also wanted was like obviously like Black Twitter is just made up of everyone, people who are famous and celebrities and people who are not, right? And so that was super important because again, like Kashawn Thompson, who was the first person to tweet out, you know, Black Girl Magic, isn't somebody famous or whatever. She's just a non-celebrity person, and that's who also makes up Black Twitter.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that like those kickbacks just feel like regular Black Twitter people. Like it's not, you know what I mean? So we have people who are, because I was saying when the trailer dropped, it's all, who are these? Why they only got celebrities? Black Twitter is everybody. And it's like, well, if you just wait till May 9th, motherfucker, you'll see you'll see the other everybody. So but you know, but that was super important because that is who makes up Black Twitter. Like Janetta Elzie was just a person, right? Who ended up going to Ferguson and talking about it, right? And so those are the people that make up Black Twitter. So it was important to have those people too. And that felt like the right setting to sort of have those kind of conversations take place in.
And they were legit like they were people that had, you know, followed each other or, you know, had seen each other's tweets. So it was cool to see like their genuine reactions to meeting in person. And that was also just really cool to watch.
Yeah. Before we close this out, because I know that my time is running short, I wanted to mention this quote I heard from Coleman Domingo at the Met Gala last night.
Oh.
He said, "We create the culture. We're the most innovative people because we had to be innovators since we stepped our foot on this soil. We had to innovate in order for you and I to be here, to thrive. We have to show up and show out because it's not just about us." And I feel like that quote was totally directed to me when I'm, you know, watching this docuseries and thinking of questions and and whatnot. And I'm just, this is just a special project. And I'm so happy that you guys made it. You brought Black Twitter to life. You just made us feel seen more than, you know, originally we feel all the time in the world. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I definitely thank Jason, because it all started from him recognizing the document are important. So all the props in the world goes to Jason.
Literally.
Yeah, really. I mean, this is just a love letter to a place and a people that felt so special to me. And so to now see it, you know, a few years later become this giant documentary and this docuseries that's going to reach even more people. It's inspiring, it's empowering. I hope it sparks conversation. I hope it, you know, galvanizes people to use their platforms in ways that they've never used it before. But also to your point, I hope they feel seen too. You know, it's really important that we hold up a mirror to ourselves and, you know, tell us, you know, we're here, we did this, and we're brilliant, and we can continue to do this, and we can continue to make things and put them and give them the right place in history. And so that's what we tried to do with this.
Yeah. When we first put out the trailer, there was so much coming out of Black Twitter to, like, you know, telling us about ourselves, which we expected, which, you know, we embrace. And, you know, that's what we do, you know, of course, that's what should be done. But it feels so good to hear what you just said. I really appreciate you getting that out of it. But not just the folks on this call here, but just all of the producers, all of our production partners, everybody who is working, we really tried to make this with care. And we're really intentional about making this feel real, making this true, because yeah, as Jason had said, this is a love letter to us, and we really wanted to do a good job. So I'm happy that you felt that.
Yeah. Thank you, Prentice, Jason, Joie. A pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.